Hi, today I'm going to show you how to relieve back pain using a tennis ball. When we say back pain, there's different causes of back pain. If you've had trauma to your back, so some sort of impact or a fall or something like that, really your first port of call, you should be going to a doctor or to your specialist and having that looked at. But most of us, most back pain is chronic back pain is usually poor posture or poor lifting, or the classic being you do a certain movement and then you get that back pain. Now there's various causes that back pain can come out. You could have, worst case scenario, prolapsed or herniated disc within the spine, and again you do need to go to the doctor and get that checked. But the thing is, what I'm going to show you today, if that is what's going on with you, this is not going to harm that in any way. Most back problems we get are caused because of the muscles being too tight and the muscles going into spasm. So you've got two muscles in your lower back called the quadratus lumborum, so we'll just call that the QL. You can see they're either side of the spine where they're situated. Now when you bear in mind that human beings aren't really designed to stand up, but we do, these muscles are quite tight and they do quite a lot of work to keep us in that position. These muscles usually are the first ones to lock up. You've also got your erector spinae, which goes down into a fascia area, which comes down into your sacrum, which is the lower part of your spine. That area as well, that gets locked up. You've also got your piriformis. Your piriformis muscle rotates your hip, and that is key, real key to back pain and sciatica, because the sciatic nerve runs through that muscle or underneath it. So these areas are key areas you want to look at. They get tight. Also, we could get what's called an anterior tilt in our pelvis. So when we sit down for too long, our glutes become weakened because they're lengthened, and our hip flexors become tightened because they're shortened in the seated position. So your hip flexor muscles being your iliopsoas or your psoas, which is a deep internal muscle, really hard to get at, and your other muscle is your rectus femoris, which runs along the front of your thigh, one of your quadricep muscles. They get tight. This will relieve or cure your back pain by releasing these muscles. Okay, so the way we're going to do that, each muscle has a trigger point, and that trigger point, if you apply pressure to it, release a muscle. Muscles become locked up and tight because they've got adhesions within the muscles. So we're going to use a tennis ball to rectify that problem. Now, this tennis ball here I got from the pet shop. It's got little dog paws on it, and the reason it's really good, it's a little bit better than a normal tennis ball, is because it's quite hard. I can't really squeeze it in, so it's quite hard. One tennis ball is good, but two is absolutely perfect. So I've got two here, and as you can see, what I've done is tape them together. Tape them together, a little bit of an art form, because you want it to look like two balls, as you can see there, almost like sort of a peanut shaped, and that's what you want to try and achieve. So when you tape it, if you sort of tape it in a figure of eight going round and then lock it off round, it works quite well. So this now is perfect, because if I place it on the floor, you can see now I've got better control than I would do for a tennis ball. Tennis ball wants to roll around. With this now, I can control it a lot more effectively. But one's okay, two's okay. One tennis ball as well, just before we go on, if I want to self-manipulate an area, for example, if I'm going to go down the front of my thigh, tennis ball, great, I can just use it myself, because using my own hand can be quite difficult. If I've got pain up in the trapeze area around here, we get a tennis ball again, I can push into there, I can use this to manipulate the area. So really effective. So first of all, we're talking about, let's start with the QL muscles. So QL muscles coming through the back into here, either side of the spine. Whenever we put any pressure on there, we don't want to put any pressure on the spine itself. So we're always working either side. So again, this is really good. If I'm rolling down through this, the spine can sit through the channel in the middle, and it won't put too much pressure on there. So now I'm going to go into that QL. So all I'm doing now is I'm using the pressure of the floor. If I've got a carpet, I can just get a hard back book and place it on the floor, and I can use that as to get the right amount of pressure into there. So I'm just going to go into that area of the QL. So I've got that now. And there, I'm just moving up and down. Let's just that. Moving up and down, just from the top of the pelvis into that area. So it's going to be quite sore, but that's the idea. we're trigger pointing, we're applying pressure up through. And now in that area as well, I've got fascia, what's called a thoracolumbar fascia. Really, really important area because it locks the whole area up. So from there now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to friction from going side to side. Hopefully you can see that. Move down a little bit, side to side. That's releasing all that fascia. That's all locking up, preventing the muscles from working freely. And through. That's one side done. Then I just go on to the other side. And then do the same again. So I'm going through. See, I'm just using my body weight as a pressure. And I'm going through, finding painful areas, leaving the pressure on, working through, rolling either side, like so. Friction that fascia around until that whole area is done. That'd be quite tender. If you've got back pain, that'd be quite tender. And you might be a bit worried about it. Don't worry about it. It's only soft tissue. You're not applying any pressure to anything skeletal that's going to cause any problems. Then we've got the rectus spinae coming up either side of the spine. So I'm just going pelvis, and that just roll through. Roll through. And then go back down through. And then when I come to that fascia that sits at the bottom of the pelvis that goes into the sacrum, I just really got to position that just right. That's nice, that's good. And now I just come through into that area. So I'm just into the pelvis now. That's quite tight. And then again, just a little bit of friction either side to release that whole area. So there you go, that whole area now has been released. So the piriformis now, these rotator muscles here, if you've got your hip, you put your finger in, it's like a dip there in your bum, in your glutes. That's where the piriformis sits, deep in. So to get this one now, I can either use the one tennis ball, put it into that area, lean in and manipulate around that area. Try and find those tender areas, like so. Or I can go with the two here, which gives me a lot better control. There we go. So I'm almost like using one side of it to roll through and find those tender spots. And then hold the tender spots, friction through again, same principle as what we did before. And again on the other side, you might be able to see better this side. I'll put it into that area, piriformis, and roll through, like so. Find it, friction through. I'm going to do it quite quick. You can spend as long as you want to on this really, as long as you can tolerate, and release all that area. So now we're starting to free up all these, the hips are starting to open up, the back starting to release. But if we've got that anterior tilt in our pelvis, where the pelvis starts to drop forward, so we're here, and we've got this real curvature in the spine which is causing a lot of pressure, and we've got the hip flexors here causing a lot of pressure. We're going to try and release this area. Just talking a little bit about that arch in the back. I've seen videos, I've seen professionals giving exercise advice. Oh, you get back pain, let's strengthen your back by working this hyperextending motion. I can't even do the move, but hyperextending into the spine. So they're trying to work into that QL muscle, the one that I keep saying gets really, really tight. Doesn't make any sense, does it? Because that's getting really tight anyway. It's a tight muscle. It gets even tighter. So what you're going to do to try and strengthen that area is tighten even more. Doesn't make any sense at all. So never ever do the exercise where you're lying on the floor and you're arching up into the back to strengthen your back. It'll just aggravate and make that muscle more susceptible to going into spasm. Hip flexors, like I say, you've got your deep muscle, your psoas, and you've got your rectus femoris. We're just going to friction here to try and release the fascia. So I just place this now just at the top of my hip and just friction across. A little bit further down, just friction across. Just finding any tender spots. Like so. And then I repeat that on the other side as well. So I go through, top of the hip, going through, frictioning through. Like so. Okay. That's that done. So what we're going to do now, so we've started to release all those muscles, we've put the trigger points in, the pressure's starting to release. We just need to do a couple of stretches just to help to release those areas. So first of all, that piriformis, that muscle that gets really locked up into here, I'm just going to bring my foot here, my heel as far up as I can. And this is the point now. Take your arm and try and get your knee in the crook of your elbow. Then take this, and all I'm going to do is pull that knee to that shoulder. And I feel a huge stretch down into that piriformis muscle. Now if you've got chronic back pain, you won't even be able to get into this position. So this might be your limit. Pulling across, this might cause a stretch. You might only be able to get here and pull it across, but as time goes on, you'll get more and more flexible until the end you can pull this and you're just hugging that knee across like so. The deep hip flexor, the one, the psoas I told you about, the one we can't really hit the other hip flexor. So to stretch that one out there, all I'm doing is take the leg back, leg forward, bring up into it. Now I've got the stretch here. You might feel a little bit of tension here, but it's fine. Just bring it up, and now try and squeeze the glute. Squeeze that glute and feel it release. When you squeeze the antagonist muscle, the agonist releases. It's called reciprocal inhibition. So you release that muscle. So I just push into that and back out again. Very small move. Coming in, squeeze, and back out. Coming in, squeeze, and back out. And again, I'll do that on the other side as well. And what that's doing is releasing. We've friction these hip flexor. We've done that stretch to release the deep hip flexor. That's going to bring the pelvis back up into line. And that's going to take the pressure off that lower back, the pressure off those QL muscles. So there you go. That's your back pain. I worked for years as a sports therapist. I worked in spinal rehabilitation, just focused on the area for many, many years. I'm constantly by myself being called upon to help people with back problems and sort their back problems out. And they always want me to come back and say, can you come back and see? The reason we put this video together is so you don't need me. You can just do this. It's very, very simple, and you can manage your own back problems and so on. I'm going to put another video together on exercises to do for your back. And so once you've got the release there, we'll show you how to strengthen the back muscles. Thanks for watching.